Okay, so these are already in the quadratic formula. So they're already put in for us, so let's practice that, and then we'll practice how to put them in. So it's just solving the equation. What I do is I solve what's inside of my square root symbol first. So I'm going to bring the outside number, the -1, down. Okay. So bring the -1 down, that plus and minus, and solve inside of our square root first. So 1 squared, everybody knows that, 1. Now the last 3 numbers inside of your square root, that -4 times 1 times -2, that's multiplication, those last 3 numbers. So -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times -2, 2 negatives make a positive. So when you multiply those last 3 numbers inside, that's +8. Now 2 times 1 at the bottom, 2. So now add your 1 plus 8. So that's 9. And I take one step at a time so I don't confuse myself. So now let's handle what's the square root of 9. That's 3. So I'm going to bring down -1 plus or minus. Now the 3 is a perfect square. So the square root symbol drops off. And then bring down your over 2. So now I'm going to separate that plus and minus, and I'm going to get my 2 answers. So I'm going to do -1 plus 3, and then over 2, and then -1 minus 3 over 2. And so you solve each one. So -1 plus 3, that's +2. 2 divided by 2, so our first answer is 1. Then let's do the bottom. -1 minus 3, -4 over 2. So -4 divided by 2, -2. So those are our 2 answers. So -2 and 1. All right, so let that marinate. Let's look at the next one. I should have given myself more room. All right, number 2. On the outside right there, 2 negatives make a positive. So that 5 on the outside is going to become a +5. So now let's solve inside of our square root symbol. So -5 squared, that will be +25. And then multiply the last 3. So -4 times 1 times 2. So that will be -8. And then 2 times 1 at the bottom is 2. All right, so now let's bring the 5 and 2 down. Don't do anything with those. Let's finish solving inside of our square root symbol. So 5 plus or minus 25 minus 8 is 17. And then bring down your 2. Can we simplify the square root of 17? No, it's a prime number. There are no other perfect squares inside of 17, but you want to always ask yourself, Can that 17 be simplified more? No, it can't. So that is our final answer, that fraction. Now in MyMathLab, you'll do 5 plus square root of 17 over 2, and then write it out again, 1 with a minus. So that's how you'll put it in MyMathLab. You won't do the plus and minus together. You'll have to separate it out. But I don't know how the test will work, but either way, I think they have a symbol, plus and minus symbol for the test that you can just do that for me. That's fine. All right, so now let's look at how do you choose the numbers to put inside of our quadratic formula. So I had this on the notes just because I felt like it might be an easy graphic organizer. So this quadratic formula is at the top right, and our problem is at the top left. So 3x squared plus x minus 3 equals 0. Now, you need to label, your first step is label the a, b, and c's. So the number in front of x squared, that is your a. The x is b, and then the plain number is c. So I'm going to put those inside of my box. So my a is positive 3. Now for my b, there's not a number there, but there really is. It's your 1. So b is positive 1. And then your c, that's negative 3. So the sign in front of the number goes with it. All right, so now that you labeled your a, b, and c, that's first. So now let's take our letters and put it into that quadratic formula. So that outside number, that negative b, is going to be negative 1. Then inside of my square root symbol, that's b squared. So I have 1 squared. And then it's minus 4ac. So a is next to the 4. And then your c is negative 3. And then at the bottom, it's 2 times a. So it's going to be 2 times 3. Now those 4 and 2's, they'll always be there. It's just standard. So you just plug in the other letters. All right, so now let's solve it. So I have, bring down that negative 1. Plus and minus. 1 squared is 1. Negative 4 times 3 times negative 3. So negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Then negative 12 times 3 is 36, positive 36. And then now 2 times 3 at the bottom is 6. All right, so bring down that negative 1 again. Don't try and do too many steps at once because that's where people mess up. So bring down that negative 1, your plus and minus. 1 plus 36 is 37, and then bring down your 6. All right, before we move on, you always have to ask yourself, can square root of 37 be simplified? No, it cannot. So that is our final answer. And on MyMathLab, you just write it out, 1 with a plus, and write it out all again, 1 with a minus. So that's our final answer for that one. All right, so let's skip 2 and let's look at number 3. So number 3, label your a, b, and c's. So the number in front of x squared is your a. So that's going to be 3. Now b, do I have a middle? I don't even have an x. So if you don't have a middle, then your b is 0. And that's okay. B is 0. And then C, negative 75. All right, so then our quadratic formula is negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So negative b, so negative 0, plus or minus square root b squared, so 0 squared is that first one, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. And I just used the quadratic formula that was on the note sheet. I should have had it on the slide, so I apologize. All right, so then I solve. So negative 0 is just 0. You could even drop that negative. 0 squared is 0, so I don't even have to put that unless I'll put it just so it has a placeholder and y'all can see it. So now multiply the back 3. So negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. And then 12 times 75, 900, positive 900. All over 2 times 3 is 6. Before you t-chart that long number, put it in your calculator. Put 900 and then do the square root of 900. So even your cell phones have it. If you turn your cell phone sideways, it gives you the square root symbol if you have an iPhone. All right, so that's 30. It's a perfect square. 30 times 30 is 900. So my top now is plus or minus 30 over 6. Because that 0 is just a 0, disappears. And now that 900 is a perfect square. That square root disappeared. So I'm going to do positive 30 over 6. And then do negative 30 over 6 for your two answers. So 30 divided by 6 is positive 5 for our first answer. And then negative 30 divided by 6 is negative 5. So our two answers are negative 5, comma, positive 5. And on MyMathLab, you don't need those parentheses. You just put negative 5, comma, positive 5. All right, so then let's look at number 4. And I think that's our last one, y'all. Yay! Okay, so we have to get everything to the left side. That is our first step. To label our A, B, and C's, everything has to be on the same side. So we already know how to move that 4 from a previous lesson. So subtract the 4 over. So x squared minus 2x, and we subtracted that 4 over. So then the right side equals 0. Now label your A, B, and C's. So my A is the number in front of x squared, is that invisible 1, so A is 1. B is the number in front of x, negative 2. And then C is our plain number, which is negative 4. So now use the quadratic formula and plug in your A, B, and C's into the formula. And again, I'm just using what I have on the note sheet. So negative b is first on the outside. So now here for the negative b, don't lose that double negative because it's negative b. So I'm going to put it on the outside, and b is negative 2. Then your plus and minus b squared. So negative 2 squared. Then minus 4ac. A is 1 and C is negative 4 over 2a. All right, so on the outside, those two negatives make a positive 2. Bring down your plus and minus. Negative 2 squared is 4. Now multiply your back half. Plus 16. And then 2 times 1 at the bottom is 2. So add inside of your square root. So 20 inside of my square root symbol. Now here, we have to simplify. So can 20 be simplified? Yes, it can. So we are not done. So T-chart your 20. List all your factors of 20. Now choose the largest perfect square. So there's only one, and that's 4. So square root of 4 is 2, and then bring down that square root of 5. So instead of square root of 20, you're going to put 2 on the outside with the square root of 5. So now I have 2 plus or minus, and then our new simplified version, 2 on the outside with the square root of 5, and 2 at the bottom. And on MyMathLab, they will take this answer, just split it up, but this technically can be simplified even further. So the numbers on the outside, 2, 2, and 2. So those can be simplified. The bottom 2 can go into both top 2's. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 1 plus or minus, and then you can put a 1 here, but you don't have to. It can be invisible. So you can just do that, and that will be the simplified.